Awesome. Okay, so hey guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our deep dive biohacking webinar. We wanted to come to you today, especially in this time that we're in right now, time of confusion, a time of worry. We wanted to come to you with solutions so that you can feel empowered to really take control of your own health and wellness. And so today we've got Marco Rodriguez. He is our expert today that's going to be sharing. So let me read his bio because I want to make sure I get it right, because Marco it's got so much experience. I want you guys to really know and understand who's sharing his knowledge with you today. So Marco and his beautiful wife, Diane, they live in El Paso, Texas. They have multiple children and grandchildren. Professionally, they've both worked as occupational therapists for over 20 years. In 2013, they formed Transformations Rehab, an outpatient clinic primarily serving pediatrics who are neurologically atypical, such as ADD, ADHD, autism. Transformations is now one of the largest clinics of its kind in the country. Marco also serves on the board of directors for the Autism Society. He is an award-winning professional, including the highest honor of the 2018 Distinguished Alumni Award for the University of Texas Medical Branch School of Health Professionals. Throughout the years, Marco and his beautiful wife have both been very active in their community. Marco was first approached about LifeVantage and its products and the company in 2015. At the time, he was super busy, didn't have time to take a look. But then when he did take a look and he saw the science, he was all in. And I'll let him share more of that story. So without further ado, Marco, take it away.
All right, Brenda, thank you so much. Golly, every time somebody reads that, I think, oh gosh, we did some of that, didn't we? It's been an amazing journey. Diane and I are so blessed to in every aspect, in our private practice, in LifeVantage as well, and then of course meeting people like you. And I've shared this multiple times that you were one of the first people that I saw when I was first looking at LifeVantage. Of course, you go to Facebook and you start looking at them and say, who are these people? And these people real? Are they kind of crazy? Are they what's going on? And I remember looking at Carrie's Facebook page, and I saw you and I saw her, and I thought, wow, these are real people, and I want to have relationships like that. So you were one of the biggest reasons why we really started looking at you in LifeVantage. I got a couple of things that I want to share with you all today, and look, I'm going to get into some real sciencey stuff. I am sort of a science geek, and I hope I don't blow anybody's mind with this. But one of the things that I want to say is that, as always, these products are not intended to treat, cure, or mitigate disease. But we are going to get into some real sciencey stuff that I wouldn't normally put in my opportunity presentation, okay? So this is going to be really just more for your knowledge and for your edification. Now, just to give you a little background on us, as Brenda mentioned, so Diane and I, well, actually, I was the one that was approached. Really, it was back in 2015. Now, just give you some reasons why, or just, I guess, kind of summarize what happened with us. So Diane and I have been in private practice for nearly 10 years, and we are blessed with a great team. I say that all the time. We built one of the largest clinics of its kind. We do OT, speech, neurofeedback, brain mapping, and with that comes its pros and cons. And one of the pros is that we love what we do. We love the fact that we have an extremely rewarding career outside of LifeVantage and within LifeVantage. We love making a difference in people's lives. One of our mottos is transforming lives, renewing minds. But there are also some cons that go along with that. And one of the cons is that because of our size, we're on the radar, so to speak. And we get approached by companies, vendors, almost on a regular basis, asking us to promote their products or their services or partner up with them. And, generally I do my due diligence, I do the research. And most of the time I find that most of those products out there are what I call Me Too products. They lack really any kind of significant, credible scientific backing. So after a few years of this, I became very skeptical of all these quote unquote natural products. And I don't know, maybe some of you can relate with that. And that's probably why I wouldn't really look at the LifeVantage opportunity for 3 years. Simply because I thought it was just like all the other products out there that overpromise and underdeliver. But I say this all the time, I'm so grateful for Patsy, our enroller, Patsy Caulfield. She never gave up on us. And after 3 years, I finally decided to sit down and take a look, a serious look at what all the fuss was about. And then I gotta tell you that what I learned that day really shook me to my core. And I learned that there was institutions all around the world like LSU, Johns Hopkins, MD Anderson, Harvard, and all these other universities that were studying this little pathway, right, called Nrf2, and they were studying it against things like cancer, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, Parkinson's. And so for the sake of time, I won't necessarily go into those right now, but we'll get into those in here in just a little bit. But so I sat down with Patsy and with Carrie, and I asked them a ton of questions. Diane and I, after we saw the presentation, it really kind of shook me because during that time, Patsy explained about her mom, and her mom had stage 3 colon cancer. They put her on the product and didn't really do chemo, didn't do anything else. And then a year later, she went back to the oncologist and all the markers were gone. I'm not saying that the little yellow pill cured her cancer, but it really caught my attention because my father, during that 3-year period of time when I wouldn't sit down and look at this, my father passed away of prostate cancer. And I couldn't help but to think, what would be different if I had sat down with Patsy and took a look at this? You know, certainly his quality of life would have been much better. So I remember thinking to myself that this may not be able to help my dad, but this certainly would help my son Seth, or I think this could help my son Seth. So I'm going to share some slides with you. I'm going to introduce you guys to my son Seth. I always talk about him during my opportunity meeting because he is a big part of this story. So let's go into, this is, oh, well, just real quick, this is my beautiful wife, Diane. She is my 1 Corinthians 13 girl. If you don't know what that means, look up the verse. This is our granddaughter. This is our daughter Kayla, my granddaughter Destiny, one of our grandkids, Destiny, my daughter Alex, Mark, Patrick, Donovan, and then this little guy right here. This is Seth, and he's a big part of this story. So this is Seth. So Seth, when he was born, had no issues, no neurologic issues. He was a healthy kid, very great personality, and loved to work out, loved to watch me work out, and he would work out there with me, as you can tell on the picture on the right. Well, when he was 7 years old, he was at summer camp, and he had an accident and sustained a closed head injury. We did therapy with him. We did everything we possibly could. I mean, he did survive, thank God for that. And so, but for the next 8 years, he really struggled in school. He was in special education and had a speech impediment, as well as having a lot of issues with his coordination. So after doing the research, especially on the Axio, and I'm going to get into some of those things on the Axio and what really caught my attention, but when I started researching the ingredients that were in the products, I thought to myself, well, if this can do what they say it can do, maybe it would help Seth. So I started biohacking with him. Now, I didn't tell him what this product was going to do, because I didn't want to have a placebo effect. I just wanted to see. I said, Seth, you're going to take this, and that's all there is to it. So he was already used to taking, different supplements. We were really into supplements before, so he didn't really think anything of it. He started taking it. Well, this is his grades after a few weeks. So this is while he was in special education. You see, he struggled. Now remember, during this time, so he was in special ed. That means he had accommodations, modifications. I was in the school almost every single day, at least every other day. I had all the teachers' phone numbers, cell numbers, so forth, just because this kid was high maintenance, okay? After a few weeks of biohacking, I started noticing that his grades came up. This is 16 weeks later. Look at his grades. All A's, and I find it hilarious that the only B he got was in Spanish, considering our last name is Rodriguez, right? My mother is actually from Spain, so I said, don't tell your grandmother, she would kill it, it would mortify her. So he did really good in school, and suffice to say that he, after 8 years in being in special education, he did so well on the STAR test, and that they tested him for special education. He tested out of special education, and now he's in advanced placement getting college credit. Now, please understand, I am a therapist. I own a private practice. I work with pediatrics mostly, working with kids like Seth. And this did for him in just a matter of a few weeks, with 8 years of therapy and other supplements and diet changes, could not do. So that kind of caught my attention. But remember, I was also very skeptical of all of these natural products. But even still, I started talking to people about what had happened to Seth. So I told our friend Anna Cox. Anna Cox was having all kind of issues with her joints, inflammation in the joints, stiffness, pain. She was in a walker. They had already ordered her wheelchair, and she was already using a shower chair. So she says, well, look, I have nothing else to lose. Let me try these products. Let me see what it does for me. A few weeks later, it was maybe about 4, 5, 6 weeks. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to the timeline back then because I wasn't sure what this was going to do. She comes into the clinic, no walker, walking almost like a regular person. Anna, where's your walker? She says, I think it's in my garage. And she goes on to tell us that she doesn't need the walker anymore. Suffice to say that that was in April or May of 2015, I think. And so 5 months later, we went to Puerto Vallarta. She comes with us. She hikes 3 miles just to go swimming with the sea lions. Now, remember, 5 months before that, she was using a walker, had already ordered her wheelchair. Well, suffice to say, she doesn't have the walker anymore, gave the wheelchair away, and she's doing very well. So we started telling other people about it. We told Lori Miranda. Lori Miranda wanted to try this on her son. Now, her son had all kinds of sensory processing issues. He was diagnosed with autism. He was having no initiation of conversation. Even the conversation that he had was minimal to none, so almost nonverbal. A very little interaction with his environment. So she says, well, look, I want to try this with him. And there's a few reasons why, and I'm going to get into those reasons why I believe that this helped him. So a few weeks later, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks later, he walks into the clinic, starts engaging in full, complete, and descriptive conversation with my wife, Diane. I'm thinking, wow, this is either all a big coincidence or there is something to this. Now, I am not saying that this cured his autism, not at all. And he's still receiving therapy at our clinic. And there's still a lot of things that we're trying to work on. I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve that autism can be cured. The point is that this kid did not have any conversation, and now he's at least able to have conversations, descriptive conversations. Oh, and he even now he's talking about what he wants to do when he grows up. He wants to own a taco truck. So who knew that the kid was an entrepreneur? I think that's pretty funny. So again, we started talking about all this, biohacking and nutrigenomics. So let me just go into a little bit about what nutrigenomics is and what biohacking is all about. So biohacking is just a term that's used within the science of nutrigenomics. And it just simply means taking control of your complex systems. And people will ask me, is this science of nutrigenomics, is this new, some kind of new age thing? Yes and no. So the science of genetics has existed for thousands of years. We knew that if you breed a white horse and a brown horse, you're going to probably get either a white horse, brown horse, or a brown and white horse, but you're probably not going to get a black horse. So we knew about genetics for a long, long time. Well, in the year 2000, the human genome was mapped out. And so we now know that you have well over 2,000 genes in your body. Now, what most people don't know is that only 10% of those genes are set in stone. That means that the other 90%, now get this, 90% or more of your genes can be affected, either upregulated or downregulated, sort of like a dimmer switch. I'll give you an example. In our bodies, we all have those inflammatory genes. We all have them. We need them. They're important. If you ever roll your ankle, what happens to your ankle? Yeah, it swells up. It triggers the inflammatory process. Now, that's important for that ankle at that time because the swelling actually protects the ankle. But the problem is that because of the environmental toxins that we're constantly being bombarded with, including various types of foods and the preservatives and all of the pesticides that are in our foods, those genes are triggered almost on a regular basis, what we call chronically. And that's why a lot of people are suffering from chronic inflammation, which leads to all kinds of other things. Milk is a good example of how you can consume something and it triggers the inflammatory process. But doesn't it make sense that if you put something in your body that can trigger those inflammatory genes or other bad genes, doesn't it make sense that there should be something that you put in your body to trigger the good genes or to turn those genes, those bad genes off? Well, that's what the science of nutrigenomics is all about. Now, people will ask, this whole science about nutrigenomics, they always have a lot of questions. And here's what I like to say. So nutrigenomics has existed for a really long time. However, it wasn't until the early 2000s when this really started coming to the forefront. And a lot of it did start because of the breakthroughs in science that were discovered by Dr. Joe McCord. Now, Dr. McCord is a 4-time Nobel Prize nominee. This guy is a big, big deal. He's a winner of the Elliott Crescent Award. And other people who've won that award are people like Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Madame Curie. So this guy is not just some run-of-the-mill scientist trying to make a buck. This guy is a real deal. So in 2005, or before 2005, he made some pretty outstanding discoveries that rocked the medical community. Well, it also caught the attention of the news media, in particularly John Quinones from ABC Primetime. So I'm going to share with you a short clip of that report that aired way back in 2005. Now, as you watch this, I want you to ask yourself a couple questions, because this is what I did for myself. If this is true, now think about it. John Quinones is an investigative reporter. He doesn't come into your place of business to promote you. He's coming in to tear it apart. After this report aired, do you think that he gave it a positive spin or a negative spin? Also, ask yourself, if all of this is true, how can you capitalize on this for yourself and for your family? Let's take a look at the short video, a short clip of it. Now, the full video is about 15 minutes long. This one's about only 3 minutes long. This is kind of the condensed version. All right, let's see.
You want to get an edge on turning back the clock? Who doesn't? Well, it's no longer science fiction, but science possibility, a potential breakthrough. It may not look like the fountain of youth, but inside this nondescript building, I'm about to become part of an exciting experiment. For me, it begins with a blood test.
It wouldn't be the first time I've given blood for this company.
They want to check my levels of something called T-bars, which is a rough indicator of a person's actual age. T-bars can identify a condition known as oxidative stress, a kind of measure of the wear and tear on our bodies. Oxidative stress, like the rusting of an engine, is not a good thing. The problem of aging begins with the very food we eat to give us energy. As our cells burn that food, they also release toxic chemicals. Those chemicals, you may know them as free radicals, react with all the components of our cells, literally bombarding them millions of times per second, damaging all our cells. The result? Oxidative stress, and we all have it. The body fights back with a system of defenses. It makes 2 antioxidant enzymes, catalase and SOD, whose job is to gobble up the free radicals before they can harm our cells.
So, doctor, how often do I take these?
And so, here I go. With that swallow, I've just become part of a potentially landmark scientific experiment. It's called Protandim, and tests have already shown that it revs up the manufacture of those good enzymes in our bodies. More enzymes, fewer free radicals to harm us. Normally, oxidative stress, measured by those T-bars, increases with age, but taking just 1 pill of Protandim a day reversed that trend for everyone at every age, even for an 80-year-old. So just what's in this seemingly incredible pill? Well, actually, its roots are very humble. Protandim is a combination of 5 plant ingredients. Some you may know: green tea or turmeric, a spice used in Indian cooking. Others, Withania somnifera and Silybum marianum, are more exotic. High oxidative stress is associated with more than aging. It's been linked to hundreds of illnesses.
It's at the very center of many diseases: liver disease, diabetes, emphysema, asthma, all of these, strokes, heart attacks, even mental disease. Yes,
Depression?
Alzheimer's disease, depression,
But what about my progress? After nearly 2 weeks now, it's time to get my results. The result? My level of oxidative stress has declined dramatically. Just look at where I fall on the graph, before and after. Have we turned back the clock? Maybe not on the outside, but deep inside within my cells. Yes, indeed.
We do know that oxidative stress is part of those disease processes. I don't want to wait until I'm 80 years old to find out that I should have taken it.
All right, so that report aired back in 2005, and at the time, LifeVantage was a small biotech company, probably doing a couple $100,000 in volume. So what happened was really unprecedented. Over the next week to 10 days, they received over $5 million worth of orders. Now think about that. You're a small company, biotech company, publicly traded on NASDAQ, and just squeaking by, and all of a sudden you get $5 million worth of orders. Sounds like it'd be kind of your ticket, right? But here's the problem. These guys were a bunch of scientists. They weren't business people. They had no real manufacturing and the delivery systems. Of course, now they didn't have the deliveries or Amazon or any of that stuff that like we do now. So everything was back ordered for about 8 months. Now imagine seeing something like this, saying, wow, I want to try this for my loved one. When I saw it, my first thought was my dad, my son's dad, myself, my wife, and then being told that you have to wait 8 months to get it. It was actually kind of a little bit of a disaster, but here's the good news. The universities from all around the world saw that John Quinones's oxidative stress levels came down by 45% in 13 days. So that caused a lot of them to contact the lab and say, hey, we want to study Protandim as it relates to whatever area of study that we're involved with. So for example, LSU in conjunction with the Skin Cancer Foundation found that Protandim reduces the proliferation of skin melanoma by 57%. In that study, they literally outlined how Protandim suppressed tumors. Get that. Okay, I think Johns Hopkins did a very similar study on lung cancer. The American Heart Association, they published a 26-page article in Circulation magazine on Protandim's effect on cardiac health. The results were so outstanding that they funded another study with Ohio State on its effects on bypass surgeries. So you've got universities like Harvard Medical School. You don't really think that Harvard's going to study this if this wasn't real, do you? Texas Tech. You have articles about Protandim in Free Radical Biology and Medicine, Journal of Cellular Biochemistry, and on and on and on. And every single one of them point to the effects, the positive effects of Protandim on the body. Look at this one, oxidative medicine and cellular longevity. Oh my gosh, can you even say that? Say that 10 times really fast. I don't think so. Now, in that report, the word oxidative stress was mentioned. Now, here's the thing that most people don't really know even what oxidative stress is, but here's what's important. It has been studied. I pulled this up. This is off of PubMed.gov, which is our National Library of Medicine. Now, please understand, your physician, your therapist, healthcare professionals like myself, we do not go to Google to find our research. We might go to Google if we're trying to find a good restaurant or just some general information, but we don't go to Google to find our research. We go to PubMed.gov. This is the National Library of Medicine of the United States. In this, it is very, very difficult to get your research in here. It's got to be what's called peer-reviewed, which is kind of the gold standard for research. Well, it also acts like a search engine. So if you search oxidative stress, I pulled this up several months ago, it's probably more now, but there was over 200,000 studies on the subject of oxidative stress. Now think about this, studies aren't cheap, they're certainly not free, they cost tens of thousands, if not more, for every study. So what we're talking about here is hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars to study this little topic of oxidative stress, and yet the average person has no idea what it is. I was very interested in that because, again, as a therapist working with children with ADD, ADHD, autism, I knew that there was a lot of links oxidative stress to kids with ADHD. So here's a good study here. Evidence linking oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, which we'll cover that here in just a little bit, along with inflammation in the brain of children with autism. I want you to look at this. They took 18 studies down here in the bottom left. They took 18 studies, took an average, and what they found was that on average, 78 to 80% of children with autism have high levels of oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, in addition to a lot of those other issues. Now, remember the lady who wanted the biohack at the beginning of the presentation I talked about, Laura Miranda and her son? Her son was diagnosed with autism. When he was 4 years old, they took a measure of his oxidative stress levels. His oxidative stress levels came back consistent with a 46-year-old man. He was 4 years old. Now, that kind of oxidative stress isn't good for a 46-year-old man, much less a small child. We started looking at this. Look at this. This is for ADHD. Increased oxidative stress in children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Again, oxidative stress in ADHD. More attention deficit suffers mitochondrial ADHD disorder suffers from mitochondrial dysfunction, right? ADHD and gut health. So we knew all of this. I couldn't go to any conference on biohacking, on autism or ADHD without them talking about nutrition. But what they didn't understand was that a lot of the nutrition that they were talking about really wasn't going to be enough because of the gut health, because of the oxidative stress levels. You have to address those issues first. I always say this, that if I was a biochemist and I was going to come up with a nutrition line that was ideal for children with autism and ADHD, it would be Protandim. So these guys, LifeVantage, they beat me to it. So now I just use it and we promote it. And we've had outstanding results with many of our patients and as well as many of our clients. Again, more studies on its effects on oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, on ADD, ADHD, and autism. Now, these are some things that I started looking at, and I'm going to get into, this is not about ADHD or autism, so I'm going to get in, but I want you guys to understand, this is what caught my attention from the very beginning, and then it sort of expanded from there. So we started seeing that about 80% of children with autism as well as ADHD have brainwave dysregulation. Keep that in mind because our product does help. There's a lot of ingredients in a lot of the products that will work and help with brainwave dysregulation, and particularly the alpha waves, and I'll get into that for a minute. In a little while. High levels of oxidative stress, that's what reactive oxygen species is, mitochondrial dysfunction, low levels of glutathione, all right? Keep that in mind. Glutathione is huge, especially now with what's going on right now, the world crisis with the coronavirus. There's a lot of scientists that are saying that high levels of glutathione may help with that. Certainly not saying that we're gonna cure with glutathione, but our product boosts your glutathione by 300%. There have been studies on with some of the, I believe it was Ohio or Idaho, there's a hospital that was giving glutathione injections to children with autism, getting outstanding results. The problem was that you have to give the shots twice a week. Good luck trying to get your kid with autism to the hospital twice a week for shots. Not gonna happen. At least I don't know any kids that would do that. But our product will boost the glutathione by over 300%. Of course, inflammation in the brain and poor gut biome. So our products address all of these issues. Not a cure for autism, not a cure for ADHD, but it gets down to the root causes and some of the main issues that these kids are facing every single day. Now, with our kids, this is what happens to most of our kids. They get all of these different medications. These are just a handful of some of the medications, and this is what a lot of our kids look like. It's almost like they're just medicated. And here's what I found. Most physicians, you go to your physician, you tell him what's going on. He says, well, look, we're going to try, this is the word, try this medication and let's see how it works. You come back, hey doc, it's not working. Okay, well, let's increase the dose or let's decrease the dose or let's try this medication. Let's see how it works. Come back in 2 to 3 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks. If it doesn't work then, let's try this, let's upregulate it, let's downregulate the medication, let's change it. And it's just a lot of guesswork that's involved. And if I talk to most pediatricians behind the scenes, they would agree. They have no idea. They are just looking to see what could possibly help them. Every kid is different, so it really is a lot of guesswork. That's really scary when you think about that. Here, I'm going to outline this here. I want you to look at this. Medications are now the number of medications are a part of malpractice, which is the #3 killer in America. Cancer is #1, heart disease is #2, and #3 is malpractice. And within malpractice, at the top of the list is pharmaceuticals. Guys, the very medications that are designed to help us are actually now part of the 3rd leading cause of death. And it's not just simply overdose. If you look here, 1/3 of, after heart disease and cancer, around half of those that were taken correctly. Now look at this. The other half, they used the drug despite contraindications. Now let me ask you this. That's part of the reason why medications are killing people, is because they use them despite the contraindications. But whose fault is that? I mean, the doctor, shouldn't he know that you have some sort of contraindication? And if you do, why did he prescribe it to you? Guys, all I want you to take from this slide is, if you're being prescribed medication, ask questions, do your research. I'm not anti-medication. There are some medications that do some really good work, but ask questions, do your research. And if your physician gets offended because you're asking questions, let him get offended. It's your body, it's your health. It's not going to bother him. He's going to go about his merry day, back to his beautiful house, beautiful wife, Mercedes, and he's just living his life. You are the one that needs to be asking your questions. It's your body. Take control of your own health. Now we know that these are your options. Either this, or you live with mitochondrial dysfunction and oxidative stress. And that's been linked to over 200 different diseases. Things like cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, lupus, fibromyalgia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So what are your options? Before I go into the options, I forgot. I was going to tell you guys, explain what oxidative stress was. Let's do this. Real simple. If you let an apple sit out for a while, what happens to the apple? It begins to decay. It begins to oxidize. It's the same process that happens if you take a piece of iron and you wet it, or you let it sit outside in the elements, the air. What happens to that piece of iron? It starts to rust. It starts to oxidize. It's the same process, and that same process is happening inside of your cells. So it could be said that you're literally rusting from the inside out. What are your options? Well, we know that Protandim activates that Nrf2 pathway. And Nrf2 has been clinically proven, our Protandim Nrf2 has been clinically proven to reduce oxidative stress by an average of 40% in 30 days and up to 70% in 120 days. So imagine being able to reduce up to 70%, one of the very things that has been linked to over 200 different diseases. Because I'll have people ask me all the time, so how can this one little yellow pill affect all of these different health issues and help with all of these different health issues? Again, we're not saying that it's curing anything, but if you can activate, what this does is this will activate over 300 enzymes in your body, and it's really the enzymes that are doing the magic inside of your cells. And we're going to go into that later on. It's called cellular signaling. We're going to cover that here in just a little bit. All right, so for me, one of the things that I was looking at is whether or not natural compounds actually do anything. Do they really, is there any studies behind natural compounds? And so turmeric, which is one of the ingredients that's inside of our Nrf2, these are some studies that I have found. There's over 16,000 studies in PubMed.gov on turmeric, also known as curcumin. Look at this, is some of the stuff that I pulled out. It is a strong anti-inflammatory, matching the effectiveness of many anti-inflammatory drugs. And here's what it does. It blocks the NFKB molecule. Now that NFKB molecule is a molecule that's inside of your cells that when it's activated, triggers the inflammatory process. So turmeric literally puts a cap over that, and now your cells cannot go into that inflammatory mode. And also, this is huge. I want you to look at this. Turmeric has been known to boost your brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the BDF. And here's what's important about BDF. It is a hormone, a chemical that your brain, it's inside of your brain. If you can activate your BDF, your brain goes into a state of neuronal biogenesis. It is the ability of your brain to create new axons. So now your axons are what your brain cells communicate with each other by sending messages from the inner part of the neuron through the axons to the other neurons dendrite. I don't want to get into a lot of neuroscience, but suffice to say that what the BDF does is it boosts your brain's ability to create new axons, literally creating new connections in your brain. It also, in certain levels, will put your brain in the state of neurogenesis, which is the creation of new and healthier brain cells. Now, I want you to think about the implications for that when you have someone who has neurologic issues. Not saying that this is going to cure them, but if we know that turmeric will boost your BDF, wouldn't you want to give somebody that you love that's having issues with either memory or with cognitive processes the ability to at least try to see whether or not this would boost their BDF? I know I would. I want you to look at some more studies here. This was interesting. So I took this off of PubMed.gov. They gave turmeric. There was a study. It was a small study. It was about 60 people with depression. They randomized them into 3 different groups. One group they gave Prozac. The other group they gave 1 gram of curcumin, and the other one took both the Prozac and the curcumin. After 6 weeks, the curcumin group had improvements similar to Prozac without the side effects. Now, if you went to your mental health practitioner, told them that you were, suffering or they diagnosed you with depression, heck, how many times do you think they're going to give you curcumin? Probably not much, unless he believes in holistic medicine. But he's probably going to prescribe Prozac like it's candy. Okay, he was really interested. He'd give you both because the study shows that actually the person who took the Prozac and the curcumin had the best results. But if you're going to give you Prozac, why not try the curcumin? All right. Nrf2 is so powerful. Now remember, our protandem Nrf2 activator, it activates the Nrf2 pathway inside of your body. The Nrf2 pathway is so powerful that Washington State University studied that same pathway, and they said that Nrf2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about all of the discoveries that have been made in modern medicine. MRIs, CAT scans, the cure for polio, penicillin. And yet, Washington State University says that Nrf2, the discovery of Nrf2, may well become the most, not, it's pretty good. No, the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. If you ever get a chance to look at this study, look it up. They were using Nrf2 for all kinds of things. Now, I don't use this slide very much anymore because we have to always abide by FDA guidelines, and they don't like the fact that Nrf2, and in that study, I mean, they studied this against things like HIV, irritable inflammatory bowel disease, all kinds of things that they found that Nrf2 can help with. Guys, what we have our hands on here is an extraordinary therapeutic and extraordinary preventative breakthrough, all right, according to Washington State University. Now, people will ask all the time, so if this Nrf2 is such a big deal, why aren't there more medications? Why aren't pharmaceuticals companies going after this and creating medication about that it's Nrf2? Well, they sort of are. But it's very difficult to activate that Nrf2 synthetically. That's what makes Dr. McCord and everything that LifeVantage is doing so genius. But this one company, Biogen, is one of the companies. They were able to produce a synthetic version of Nrf2. It was called BG12. Now it's called Tecfidera. It was a medication that was used in the treatment of multiple sclerosis. Now, they spent over $1 billion coming up with this synthetic Nrf2. Now, As with every medication, they have to put it through their clinical trial. So they compared it to multiple different potential Nrf2 activators, et cetera, et cetera. And here's what they said at the end of the study. They said, this is not our study. This is Biogen's own study, which they published in the Multiple Sclerosis Journal. They said, interestingly, Protandim, a dietary supplement consisting of herbal ingredients, was the most potent inducer and therefore may be the most suited as a therapeutic strategy. Guys, understand something. They spent $1 billion coming up with this medication. And they know, they even touted that our little $50 a month product, natural product, was a better Nrf2 inducer. All right, Tecfidera is like $65,000 a year if you get on it, and of course you have all the all the side effects that go along with the synthetic medication. So $65,000 a year versus $50,000. I mean, compared to $50 a month, it doesn't really compare. And you don't have to have multiple sclerosis to take Protandim because it helps with so many different things. This is a natural product. All right, so. That just kind of goes over some of the oxidative stress. I want to cover some other things about mitochondrial dysfunction, which many times, we call that the second theory of aging. Now, this is something that you need to know about mitochondria. The average person has over 10 million billion mitochondria in your body. It's approximately 10% of your body weight. Now, if anything in your body is 10% of your body weight, it is a big, big deal. In fact, 97% of your energy is created and synthesized within this little mitochondria. And the mitochondria, if you remember back from junior high school biology, inside of every one of your cells, you have organelles, and one of those organelles is the mitochondria. We call it the powerhouse of the cell, right? ATP, Krebs cycle. It does produce 97% of the energy in your body, but oh my gosh, it's so much more than just that. It's involved in the cellular detoxification process, removing free radicals. It monitors and promotes healthy cell life as well as healthy cell death. It helps with the elimination of unhealthy cells. Guys, if you have cells that are unhealthy, you want your body to get rid of them because unhealthy cells, if they stay in your body, begin to mutate. And that's what causes a lot of the issues and diseases like cancer and all these other diseases. Unhealthy cells, mutated DNA inside of the mitochondria. It also helps, again, it helps with the cellular proliferation or the creation of newer and healthy cells. So your mitochondria is a big, big deal. You got to take care of it. Now, doesn't it make sense if the mitochondria is that important that you should be able to do something in order to take care of it? I mean, to not take care of it is actually kind of irresponsible, I think. And so with us, we have LifeVantage has a Nrf1 pathway or Nrf1 activator that's clinically proven to put your cells into a state of mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the creation of newer and healthier mitochondria. All right. Now we also have another product here that is the third theory of aging, which is your theory of Sirtuins. Your Sirtuins are little proteins, enzymes that exist and are created also within the endoplasmic reticulum of your cells. So LifeVantage wanted to address those three theories of aging, which of course is oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and the theory of Sirtuins by creating activators. Now people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a supplement and an activation? Let me explain this real quick before I move on. When you have a supplement, you open the bottle, that supplement is, let's just say it's an antioxidant, vitamin C or one of those other antioxidants, right? As soon as you open that bottle, that vitamin C is now exposed to the air. It starts breaking down that vitamin C immediately. As soon as you put it into your mouth, the saliva starts to break down that vitamin C even further. By the time it gets into your gut, into your stomach, the acids break it down even further. So by the time it actually gets absorbed into your body, what you're talking about is most of it's just more the phytonutrients, and it doesn't really have the antioxidant properties that it did when it was still in the bottle sealed up. But what if you could produce your own antioxidants from the inside out. Never got exposed to oxygen, never got exposed to the stomach acids, never got exposed to the saliva. It just actually comes from the actual cells are producing your own antioxidants. So that's what that Nrf1, Nrf2, and the NAD pathway does. So the NAD boosts your sirtuins. Now there's different ways of boosting sirtuins. The nearest competitor boosts it by 2%. You can also go into what's called calorie restriction, which basically it's you're going into starvation mode. And by doing that, you're going to boost that by 94%. But our product, our NAD Synergizer, will boost your NAD, boosting your sirtuins by 100% within 24 hours. Now, here's what's amazing, is when you put all of those together, those three, the Nrf1, the Nrf2, and the NAD, all kinds of magical things start to happen. So I want you to look at this, the HMOX1 gene, which is part of your Nrf2. Protandem by itself will boost it 51%, but when you put all three of them together, it will boost that survival gene, giving you healthy inflammatory response 848%. That's a 1,563% increase by using the Tri-Synergizer. If you go way over here to the right, the NMNAT1, boosting it by a 1,792% increase by putting them all together. So people will ask, okay, so how does this, when you take all three of these, how does this work in your body? Well, what we're talking about is coordinated cellular signaling. And it's literally as simple as initiating something with an A, which tells B, which tells C, and then D, and eventually Z. And as Dr. Dixon says, then something happens. All right, so this is obviously an incredibly complex chart of cellular signaling, but if a person studies molecular biology, this is exactly the map that you would look at when figuring out how the cell signaling pathway is actually making it through the cells. So again, it's initiating A, which activates B, activates C, and then D, and then of course eventually Z, causing something to happen. In other words, there's an input, and then there is a physiological response, that cell signaling in a nutshell. So if that's how cell signaling works, what is actually kicking it off? It's the receptors. I think of receptors as being these little sensor molecules that live on the inside of your cells. The sensor molecules are waiting for the right stimulus, or the signaling molecule to come and initiate A, telling B, and eventually something physiological happens. Another analogy is that of a lock and key. I want you to think about the key that opens the front door to your house. That key opens the door to your house, but not to my house, just like my key won't open up the key to your front door. Okay, there is a specificity that happens between the signaling molecules or the key and the actual receptor or the sensing molecule, also known as the lock. All right, so once a signaling molecule, the key, literally unlocks a specific receptor, the lock, then that receptor acts, triggers B, which triggers C, and eventually, again, some physiological response happens inside of the cell. My favorite analogy, though, is that of the dominoes. I want you to think about when you see these huge domino exhibitions. They knock over one domino, and it starts a chain reaction, and it tends to be it ends with some huge grand finale at the end. This is exactly what happens with cell signaling. A domino gets knocked down, and then that affects domino B, then C, and eventually something grand happens. But it all started with one domino responding to the trigger. So I'm going to show you a little video here to illustrate how all of this works. So can you see how the finger here, this man's hand, is going to really be more of the signaling molecule, right? That's his hand. That's the signaling molecule. The first domino is B. That is the first receptor molecule. And then B is going to affect or A, I'm sorry, is going to affect B, which affects C, and eventually something grand happens. Now let's watch. And I've got Dr. Dixon in the background kind of explaining it. Here we go.
Then A is going to tell B, B is going to tell C, and then something happens. So watch, one small little input is going to have a massive consequence. One domino is going to knock over ultimately every single domino you can see on the screen. It's amazing. And this is that A is going to.
So that is how you can have 3 small little products and do massive amounts of things inside of your cells. You literally have something that's an activator. That's why they call ours activators. They're not supplements. We're activating your cell's ability to produce over 300 enzymes. And it's literally A producing or activating B, C, and eventually you have over 300 enzymes that are being produced in your body. Now those 300 enzymes working in unison, specifically I like the top 3, which is catalase, glutathione, and superoxide dismutase. I call those the 3 amigos. Those 3 enzymes, when they get activated inside of your cell, they are 1 million times more powerful than taking an antioxidant. In other words, 1 unit of those 3 enzymes can remove 1 million free radicals per second, every second in every cell of your body. That's how you can literally reduce a lifetime of oxidative stress, free radicals in your body. You can reduce a lifetime of it by 40% in 30 days. Now, if you don't understand how powerful that is, you really need to take a look at this video again. 40% of a lifetime buildup of oxidative stress can be reduced in 30 days and up to 70% in 120 days. Guys, that's only 4 months to reduce 70% of the oxidative stress that you have built up, those free radicals, those toxins that you've built up in your body over the course of a lifetime, all right? Now, I love the fact that LifeVantage has taken that same Nrf2 technology and they put it into different products. So for example, Axio, I love Axio. It was originally marketed as a kind of a high energy drink, but we now know that it's a lot more than that. It's really liquid brain food. It's an Nrf2 activator for the brain. Now, about a year and a half ago or so, I did some research where I took all of the ingredients in Axio and I broke them down. So I'm just going to share some of those with you here for just a minute. So these are all ingredients that are inside of the Axio. So if you take niacin, for example, there have been over 13,000 studies on niacin in PubMed.gov. Things like lowering cholesterol, look at this, proper brain function. There's over 436 studies on vitamin B3 and its effect on brain function. Vitamin B6 is also in it. There's over 16,000 studies in PubMed.gov on vitamin B6, helping to improve mood, a healthy nervous system. Your adrenal functions is really important. Of course, vitamin B12 also helping with the healthy nervous system. Look at this, helping to make DNA synthesis. There's over 303 studies in PubMed on vitamin B12. Well, vitamin B12 is in our Axio drink. If you look at magnesium, again, activating over 300 enzymes, just magnesium alone. It's very crucial. Magnesium is crucial to brain function and transmission of nerve transmission. Look at this, DMAE, dimethylaminoethanol, over 478 studies on DMAE. Look at this, boosting brain power, improving memory, and slowing down the aging. It is a precursor to the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that helps your nerve cells to communicate. Think about the implications of that on your brain health. By the way, your brain cells are neurons. They are involved heavily in neurotransmission, okay? Look at this, there's over 2,282 studies on the effects of DMAE for persons with Alzheimer's. Now, we are not saying that this is a treatment or a cure for Alzheimer's. I want to just simply point out that our product has DMAE, and there are studies, over 2,000 studies on the use of DMAE for Alzheimer's. Now, again, that is millions of dollars that are being spent to study DMAE on Alzheimer's, there's got to be something there to it. Now, you'd have to go and do the research and find out what dosages. I'm not even sure if our product has all of the sufficient dosages of DMAE, but I found it interesting. Look at this, 110 studies of DMAE and its effects on persons with autism, okay? Quercetin, again, anti-inflammatory, heart health. Down here, pine bark is another powerful anti-inflammatory. You look at L-theanine. L-theanine is a boost your neurotransmitter GABA. Here's why GABA is really important. There's a lot of studies that have been done going back to the 1960s that persons who have seizures, many of them have very low productions of GABA. Well, our product has L-theanine in it, which we know L-theanine helps to boost GABA. It also helps with, L-theanine also helps with regulating mood, emotions, so forth, enhancing alpha brain waves. That's really important to me because I know that in our clinic we do neurofeedback, which one of the things that we're trying to do is help our patients have healthy alpha brain waves. So I thought, man, this is going right along with what we were doing, enhancing alpha brain waves, which is kind of the wakeful relaxation where you're not too low or you're not really too pumped up. You're in a state what's called homeostasis. You're just kind of on an even keel, helping to boost dopamine levels, all kinds of stuff here. Again, the rhodiola rosacea, and I could go on and on. Look at this, helping again with brain boosting power. So what I saw in this over and over and over again is that all of the ingredients in Axio in one way, shape, manner, or form will help to boost and help promote optimal brain health. So Axio is a huge, huge part of my life, my son Seth's life, and I recommend it to as many people as I possibly can. Now, a company also came up with some different products. I'm going to kind of wrap it up because I don't want to go over my time. We came out with a very powerful probiotic. I know a lot of people take a probiotic, but the problem with most probiotics is that if it's not a time release, then most of it gets destroyed in your stomach because of the acids. That's not where you need it. You need it in your lower intestines. So our product has a BioTrack, which is a registered trademark. It's a BioTrack and Wellmune technology, which puts a capsule over the probiotics, so more of it gets down into your lower intestines, which is where you actually need it. And we know, of course, that with all of the food that people are eating, all the preservatives and everything, it's really starting to destroy a lot of people's stomach linings. When you have a poor digestive health, well, that leads to all kinds of things. That leads to things like leaky gut, which, of course, if you don't know what leaky gut is, it's exactly what it implies. All the, a lot of the waste, or some of the waste that is supposed to be excreted in your bowel movement, actually leaks back into your body, gets absorbed back into the bloodstream, and so you're just recycling your own feces throughout your blood system. I mean, think about that. That's kind of nasty. Well, if you don't have a healthy gut, that's actually what's happening to a lot of people. So our product has been was designed to help promote a healthier gut. I'm not saying that it's going to cure leaky gut, but if you can give your body just some of these different, a better chance of having better gut health, then you're going to put your body in a better position to be able to ward off a lot of the environmental toxins that we face on a daily basis. The company also came out with a lot of other different products. For example, the LSU study with skin cancer. At their recommendation, we came out with a Nrf2 activated skin care system. I know that there's several surgeons that are also using it because of its wound healing properties. But it's an anti-aging, and my wife was all over that. As soon as she saw that this had some anti-aging properties, she'll even say, "Boy, I was all over that." And I've had some pretty good results with it. I had a guy that. Most guys don't walk up to other guys and compliment them on how good their skin looks. I had that happen to me, which I thought was kind of strange at the time, but hey, I took it, and it's obviously working because I do look younger. I do feel younger. We also have the world's first Nrf2 activated hair care system. We also have a weight management system that's got the prebiotic. Prebiotic is really important. If you're taking a probiotic, if you're having gut health issues, the prebiotic will help. It actually acts like the fertilizer for your healthy probiotics. And ours has seaweed and some other things in it that will also help to kill off candida and some of the other bad bacteria. You can get back and maybe do some of your own research on that if you want to get more in detail. We also have the Nrf2 activator for your pets. We really love our four-legged friends, and we want them to be as healthy and happy as long as possible. So that is all that I have, I think. Let's see here. The only thing I wanted to share is, people ask all the time if these products are available through stores, and if they're so good, why aren't they available at GNC? Well, they were for a while. They were sold at GNC. But the problem is that these products are so specific and really, if you think about it, kind of complex. And most of the time, whether it's CVS or GNC, the store clerk is not going to explain everything to you, certainly not in the way that I've done it today. So the product wasn't selling very well. It was selling less than a bottle per store per month. Meanwhile, you've got all of these studies that are coming in with Ohio State, of course, the Biogen study, and of course, Washington State University saying that this is Nrf2 activation may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic, most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Wow. So they had a choice to make. LifeVantage has a choice to make. Either keep it on the shelves and no one's going to know about it, or change it to person to person. So that's what they did. They took it off the shelves, and now they're going through person to person. Basically, people who have taken the product, experienced it, had great results, and are willing to share it, just like I am doing here today. So, that's kind of what we do, right? You have something. I mean, think about this. My son, Seth, was in special education for 8 years. This did for him in a matter of months what 8 years of therapy could not do. Now, I'm a therapist. I work with these kids. This was kind of a shot to the ego, but I got to put the ego aside, and the kid's doing great. So do you think maybe I've told a few people about this? Yeah, absolutely. Think about Anna Cox and Lori Miranda. Anna wasn't walking. Now she's walking. Lori Miranda, her son was having a lot of health issues. Now, nonverbal and all the social interaction issues. And he's doing much better. Do you think people have noticed that? Yeah, of course they have. Do you think maybe they've told a few people about it? Of course they have. That's what we do. It's what humans do. We always share information that we're excited about. So with that, I'm going to close. Brenda, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. I apologize if I went over any time. And I hope and pray that this information was beneficial to you and that people understand what we have our hands on. This is more powerful than even I can mention and I can explain in this 1 hour segment. So Brenda, thank you.
Marco, thank you so very much. Incredible. Again, during these times, being able to have tools that we can use where we are empowered. I love the fact, I love the science, and I love the fact that it's that we have a balance of products that are science-based, rock solid science, and then also the fact that we have all the anecdotal proof, the evidence, right? The things that we've seen. You've seen it in your life. I've seen it in my life. Many of you guys know my own story, especially those of you guys that are in the private Facebook group, Optimal Wellness Activated. So thank you, Marco, for your time today. Thank you for bringing your passion. Thank you for bringing your expertise. Thank you for drilling down into the science, because again, people oftentimes are looking for, there's the balance of folks that want science. There's a balance of folks that just want to know what's it going to do for them. The fact that we're able to bring both to the table is powerful. And it also gives people a way that they can take control for themselves. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive science. Thank you, Marco, for your time. Now, let me say this. For those of you guys that are listening to this message, we are definitely in uncertain times right now. And we have, as you guys have heard Marco speak about the power of these products to help people, to boost our own wellness. We have a solution, and a lot of people are sharing this solution. So if what you have heard today is compelling to you, tomorrow on Wednesday at 6 p.m., Marco and I are going to come back again. Okay, Marco and I are going to come back again, and this time we're going to talk about both the product piece, but during this time when so many people are losing their income, when so many people are desperate or just wanting to have maybe a safeguard, we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to talk about the product piece, and I'm going to talk about the business piece and how you could potentially marry those two if you have an interest. It's not for everybody. This is not a fit for everybody. But if you are thinking that based upon what Marco shared today, that you might have an interest in learning more, we're going to come back and you can learn more about the products again, hear it again, not in as much detail as today, but in about 40 to 45 minutes, you're going to get an overview of the products, but also an understanding of how is it that we do make money? How is it that by simply sharing and by educating and by pointing people to the information that you could possibly build another source of income during these times? So if it's not for you, you might be thinking about somebody that might have an interest, somebody that's been furloughed, somebody that's not currently working, someone whose income stream has all of a sudden stopped significantly or stopped completely. So join us back tomorrow. If you're interested, give me 1 second. Let me give you the Zoom for that. So the Zoom ID for that meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is 503-083-1325. Again, 503-083-1325. Join us tomorrow to learn about how you could possibly take advantage of this or share this with somebody else who might be interested in this information. Thank you again, Marco, for fantastic information.
My pleasure. Thank you. Anytime. You too.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.